Hi everybody, Miss Julia here. So today's video is going to concentrate on spring and Easter and fun and lighthearted. So I decided to do an animation one. I'm going to take inanimate objects, which is our spring flowers, and turn them into animated characters. So those of you that like animation, this is a really fun video to watch. Go ahead and give it a try and have fun with it, and happy Easter. Okay, for today we're going to animate our spring garden for Easter. So animating a garden means that we're going to take and make our flowers come alive. So the first thing I'm going to do is start in the center of my picture with a little dot. Don't bother measuring it, just eyeball it. From there, I want you to make a little U, approximately 3 fingers in height. And then from there, I want you to take and add a wavy line like this. Okay? Then approximately 3 fingers up from that, put a little dot, and we're going to make another U, approximately 3 fingers. And we're going to wave that line like this, pretty similar to that one. Okay, so these are going to be daffodils. So what I want to do is start with 3 petals. 1, 2, 3. We're going to do the same on this one. 1, 2, 3. Now, daffodils have 6 petals. So what I want to do is I want to draw in the top of this daffodil first. So I'm going to take and round this out, wave it along, and connect it at the end. I'm going to round this out, wave it along, and connect it at the end. Okay? Now that I know where the top is, I can add in the other petal, tuck it in there. The second row of petals are in between these ones, and you can tuck them in and make them slightly shorter than the first row of petals because they're underneath or a little further away. So we have 2 daffodils. From there, I want you to imagine the center of that. Don't touch your pen until you get to the end of the petal, and then I want you to add in 2 lines for a fairly thick stem like this. So imagine the center. I'm kind of going off the page almost, just kind of fade it out like this. Okay, now from there, I want you to add in from the tip of where your petal ends here, approximately 3 fingers up, you're going to make another U. Okay, and then approximately 3 fingers down from that one is the top of this one. Okay, and then I'm going to just go about maybe 2 fingers down. I'm going to make another one. So these are going to be tulips. So for the tulips, I want you to think of where they haven't quite opened yet. So I'm just going to add just a couple of petals to give the impression of an opening tulip. And then from there, I'm going to skim my line, lift up on my pen when I get to that petal, and come right down. So I don't want to go through. Now, if you're using a pencil, you can just erase the lines you don't want, and you can put those lines in, so just avoiding the other flower. So then this one has to have a stem of its own, so bend this one this way so you can tell they're 2 different stems. Okay, once you get the stems in there, now the animation part comes into it. So I'm going to actually add, I think, a couple of leaves first. So for a daffodil's leaves look a little bit like a thick piece of grass. and sometimes they're taller than the actual flower. So I'm going to put 2, and this one I'm going to bend it a little bit. Okay, and on this one I'm going to put another one cutting across here. Okay, so for a tulip, they have a fatter leaf. Very long, thin, but a much fatter leaf. So I'm just kind of going in around flowers. I'm just going to add a couple of these fatter ones. Okay, maybe a hint of another one on the opposite side. Okay, so from there, now we're going to add faces. So I'm going to look at these daffodils. So I'm going to make my daffodils look exactly that, kind of daffy. So goofy, I'm going to make them goofy. I'm just going to follow this line and open this up like a mouth. Okay, I'm going to follow this line and open this up like a mouth. And then for their eyes, I'm going to give them suspended ovals. So they're not connected to anything. They're just there. Nice big ovals. Now, to make them daffy and kind of goofy, I'm going to add a pupil. And then I'm going to add another pupil on the inside, almost like cross eyes, but I'm going to make them googly eyes. So this one I'm going to put at the top, and this one over here. Okay, so it kind of gives you that feeling of them being kind of goofy. Now, because they're moving and I want to give the impression of smile, I'm going to add the motion lines a little bit wiggly on either side of their mouth. So it makes you feel like they're laughing or jiggling. I'm also going to take their leaves and add a few little jiggly lines by the leaves, almost like they're moving their hands. So to animate the leaves, I'm going to do just that. I'm going to add a curl on the end of the leaf to look like a hand. Okay, so I'm going to take this and I'm just going to curl the end of the leaf to look like a hand. I'm going to curl the end of this leaf, and I'm going to curl the end of that leaf. So those guys all have little hands now, some more motion lines. So for the tulips, we're going to do exactly that. We're going to make them 2 lips. So for them, I'm going to add a wavy line. I'm going to add a wavy line. Wavy line. Okay, so for them, I'm going to add a lip in here and a bottom lip. I'm just going to fit it in there. I'm going to add the bumps of the lip and add the center of the lip. The bumps of the lip and add the center of the lip. Okay, for their eyes, same thing. Suspended circles, little smaller. These guys are not as goofy as the daffodils. So on them, I'm just going to put the dots evenly. This one I want him looking down, maybe this guy looking off to the side, and maybe this guy I'll have him looking up. Now to show their movement, I'm going to add 2 not wiggly lines next to their mouths, and it makes them look like they're kind of smiling or moving their mouth. Now for their those leaves, I'm going to do the same. I'm just going to add a curl to the end of the leaf to look like hands. Okay, so now we're going to color it. So for the coloring on this one, I'm going to use half pastel and half colored pencil. So I'm going to start with that dusting of white, which makes your colors go on really soft and easily blended in the background. All right, once I dust my sheet, I'm kind of going around my image. Okay, now I'm going to take a little bit of a turquoise blue and a little bit of yellow, and I'm going to start with the yellow on this one. So I'm just going to glow it with a soft yellow. Now it will go on soft because we've already dusted the back of the sheet with white, so the color blends in a little more than it would if you hadn't dusted it. Just makes it easier for you to blend it. So I'm adding this little bit glow of yellow. I'm going to rub that in just with my finger. Gives it a glow. You can kind of tell what's background and what's a leaf. I actually think I messed that up right here. So this is leaf. I'll ignore that. So now we're going to do turquoise. Taking a little turquoise. If you don't have turquoise, use blue. Just going to work that into my yellow. So it gives it an impression of sky, just background color. Kind of has that Easter shade to it. You know, anything that's pastel. All right. So nice soft blue or a soft turquoise, even a soft pink would work. Now, to give the impression of other plants in the background, I'm going to take a yellow green and I'm just going to add a few little leaves that I didn't draw, just to kind of fill in the background with some faded leaves. Just kind of add some leaves in your background, in around, almost like they're out of focus. So you're not focusing in on these ones. And you'll notice in animation and cartooning, a lot of times the background has no outline. It's much softer because you don't want the attention there. You want the attention on the little creatures in the front. So these animating an inanimate object like flowers or furniture. So a perfect example of animating an inanimate object would be in Disney when they do Beauty and the Beast. Not Beauty and the Beast. Which one is it that they do yeah, Beauty and the Beast. That's it. Beauty and the Beast, they all the little characters in the house are, you know, Mrs. Potts and Chip and all those guys. Those are inanimate objects, and they've animated them to turn them into characters. So I'm just using a colored pencil now, and I'm just going to color all the petals of my yellow daffodils with the yellow. Now, we're going to kind of talk about the color opposites again and color harmonies. So in this case, we're going to use color harmonies. So when we have a yellow, you say, okay, if I had to shade something on my way towards the cool spectrum of my color wheel, the cool being towards your blue. So as you're heading up your color wheel towards your blue, in between yellow and blue is green. So your color harmony is green. So for the shadows on your flower, I'm going to hint the slightest little bit of green in the shadows. The shadow is the cooler color, so it's leaning towards the blue part of your color wheel. So I'm going to use just a little green for my shadows. Now, on the other end of it, I want to highlight. So you think about you're leaning towards the warm side of your color wheel, which would be towards your red. So you have your red, your blue, and your yellow. Those are your three primary colors. So on your way towards the warm, which is your red, you would get, with a yellow flower, you would get orange. So the little bit of highlighting that I'm going to do on these flowers is going to be with orange. So I'm going to take my orange and I'm just going to tip the edges a little glow on some of these edges. And see how it just livens up the color. So these are little tricks. You know, color theory is really important when you're doing, even when you're doing cartoons and animation, as much as it would be for a realistic picture, you would use these same concepts. So if you just use yellow and use a darker yellow to shade, it just becomes not as, it doesn't have as much life. You want a little more life in it. So using these color theories will help you when you're coloring your pictures. So for his lips, we want to do a little bit of the same color theory. We're going to highlight him with orange. Now, I want to make the mouth open, and I want it to look dark inside the mouth, but I don't want to just use black, because sometimes you fill it in with black, it looks like he's got something in his mouth rather than an opening. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the color opposite from yellow, which is purple. So I'm going to take and fill inside the mouth with a blue purple, which is the color opposite to the orange too, but you see how it looks more like an opening, and it also brings your attention to the mouth. Now, to give the impression of a red cheek, I'm going to take a red color pencil and just kind of shade the edges of his mouth a little redder, so it almost looks like a shadow. Go along the top, but leave the bottom, maybe just do the underside of the bottom so it looks like lips. So I'm going to do the same over here. I'm going to fill him in with the orange. So I used colored pencil on this one because the details are small and it's hard to get in with the chalk. But against this soft background, it looks quite cool because the background looks very out of focus. It's hard to get that effect with the pencil in the background. You can do it with pencil, but it is a little harder. Okay, now I'm going to do the purple. So my purple is leaning more to the blue rather than a red purple because I want it to look like an opening, so I want cooler. All right, now for the tulips, we're going to do the tulips with a variegated color. We're going to start with all the tops of the tulips a nice bright yellow and let that yellow fade down. So I'm just using yellow, letting it fade down. All right, and then I'm going to take my orange and I'm going to fade up. So the color of the flower is orange at the bottom and yellow at the top. So that's this is what you call your base color or your local color. Local color means the most, if you were to think of an apple, a red apple, you'd say the local color for a red apple is red. So on this one, it's a yellow orange. So now we have to think, how would we shade this? So I'm going to use the color Harmony, and I'm going to shade it, go a little bit deeper red at the bottom, and then I'm going to use my purple. So your shadow would be purple, leaning towards the red, leaning towards the blue is going to be purple. There we go. So you see how that just gives it, oops, sorry, I'll put a little bit of red in there first. The reason I don't want to go on orange with the blue or the purple is it'll gray the color because it's a color opposite. So I want to kind of use red first and then the purple, and it just looks like an extension of the red and it deepens. There you go. So I'm going to go in with my orange. And I'm leaving quite a bit of yellow at the top. So you'll see tulips that look like this out there right now. A little red at the bottom. And then when you look at the tulips, kind of look at all the different colors you see, even though you think, oh, it's a red tulip. But look at those shadows. you'll see purple. Look at those highlights, you'll see a bit of orange. Same with tree trunks, you know, tree trunks everybody uses a brown, or they use a gray or a black. Whereas when you look at a tree trunk, there's so many different colors. So for the lips, the local color of the lips is red. So I'm going to color them in red. Now if you look, I'm going to show you what I mean. I'm going to shade all of them in first. Now I'm going to leave a little white highlight. There we go. I'm going to fill it in with red. Now your top lip is your shadowed lip because it's beveled. It's not catching the light like the bottom lip would. So your bottom lip, I'm leaving a little white highlight on the bottom lip. A shine. There we go. There we go. So right now that looks fine, but when you have on the way towards your warm side of your color wheel, you're going to be leaning towards the yellow, which is going to give you orange. So I am going to put a little bit of orange on the top lip. I'm going to put a little bit of orange and see how it makes those lips look rounder by adding that bit of orange. Okay, now for the opening and the shadows on the lip, I'm leaning towards the cool side of my color wheel, so I'm going to use the purple. So I'm going to use a little bit of purple just along that top lip and along the bottom edge, and just where I want a bit of shadow, using a bit of purple. So you see the difference? It just looks more three-dimensional. So you just press into your pencil where you want a little more shadow and lighten up on your pencil where you want less. Okay, so I would say you're shading the top lip maybe just a tiny bit more than your bottom lip. Okay, now we're going to go to the leaves. So leaves, on your color wheel, you're leaning towards a blue-green, and so your leaves are green, your local color is green. So you're going to start off with just a basic green. And you're going to fill this in. I'm going to go around those eyes, anything that's overlapping the green. I'm going to do this one leaf, and then I'm going to let you fill in the rest, and I will post the final picture just because it'll take a little bit of time to do it. And I may change my greens when I get to the daffodil and maybe go a little bit deeper. But on the color wheel, going towards your green is halfway between your yellow and your blue. So I'm going to shade with blue and I'm going to highlight with yellow. So I'm going to take and add a little shadow with the blue. And I'm going to shade along one edge, maybe a little bit more. So you have to pick the side that you want your, if you've got your light coming from the right hand side, then you want to stay with that for the whole thing. All right, so I'm going to take a little yellow. Now watch how this just livens up this leaf. So I'm adding little touches of glows of yellow on my leaf. There we go. See how that livens it up? Okay, so the only other thing is just kind of a fun little thing to add to this is look in your picture where you think you could add something in the background. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to add right in here a little bee. So for the bee, I'm going to give him two little suspended eyes, have him maybe looking at one of the flowers. And I'm going to add two little bumps, maybe the hint of another bump on the other side, and some motion lines, and a little smile, and a couple of, and I'll color him in with yellow. And I'm going to add a little flight pattern behind him, maybe spin it around, work my way down. So he looks like he's coming from somewhere. There you go. So have some fun with this. I'll post the final color one afterwards, and happy Easter.